Lawsome, the podcast for law firms. Powered by ConsultWebs.
Okay. I'm Jake Sanders.
And I'm Tanner Jones.
Today we're talking about family law firm marketing, co-parenting during COVID, running a remote practice, and more with...
My name is Payman Aramju, and I'm the co-founder of Aramju Law Firm.
But before we get to that, here's a word from our sponsor.
Since 1999, ConsultWebs has been helping law firms connect with clients on the web, connect digital marketing success with firm success, and connect their business goals to proven strategies that help them get the most out of their legal marketing. Go to consultwebs.com to learn more.
And now, a Lawsome interview with
Payman Aramju, and I'm the co-founder of Aramju Law Firm.
So let's talk a little bit about you. Tell us a bit about your history and how you came to focus on family law specifically.
All right, it's a long story. You guys interject as we go, and I can give you little bits of information as we go.
We'll throw a flag up, you'll see.
All right, please do. It all started with a young lady named Ashley Draper. And
It always
she's my
does.
wife. Yeah, we met in high school. And in high school, I powder coated motorcycles. People would bring them over, I'd take them apart, I'd powder coat them, and it was sort of like it was my entrepreneurial spirit, I guess, to start doing something young. And at the end of high school, I thought, what the heck am I going to do? We have this program called the A+ Scholarship. And so I paid for a couple years of community college we just had to pay for books. The tuition and everything else was covered. So I thought I might as well do that and get some education. And by the end of that, I had some fun with philosophy. So I thought, I'm going to major in philosophy. And so Ashley and I decided to go to Northwest together because I had a philosophy program and spent 2 more years doing philosophy. Now, the problem with majoring in philosophy is that careers are not terribly abundant unless you want to continue going to school. And I didn't terribly like school in the first place. So another master's or PhD program wasn't terribly exciting. So I talked to Ashley. She always had this idea that she wanted to be an attorney. I think her next door neighbor growing up was an attorney. She was always impressed by them. So I said, let's go to law school then. So we took the LSAT, rushed off to UMKC and finished our law degree there.
And so setting up specifically a family law practice, how did you center around that? Because you could have been a criminal lawyer. You could have been like an Aaron Brockovich type person, ecologically minded. What made you focus in on the family?
So part of the reason that we got into family law is because we had a litigation mindset. We really like going to the courthouse. And the reason that the courthouse excitement started, I guess, is because we started at the prosecutor's office for about 1.5 years. I was at different divisions in Jackson County and Independence. And after law school, we wanted to start a firm, and we thought it made most sense to do what we're comfortable with. At that juncture, Ashley had been clerking with a family law judge in Jackson County. So the plan would be we'd start a practice. I do criminal defense, she'd do family law. We did, of course, estate planning and traffic law, just like we do now.
You reached out to us specifically about remote operations during COVID, specifically around family law. So, was it the experiences that you saw specifically with families that sort of guided you into that, and then speak towards this COVID experience that we've all been, having?
All right. So for the first year and a half, my wife was working at UMKC in their child and family service clinic, and I was doing the criminal defense stuff. After she graduated, or after she left that job at UMKC, we both sort of put on our focus on family law, just as a consequence of most of the calls being family law. And what was interesting about that is that so much family law involves litigation, so it sort of mirrored both our goals. We had plenty of clients to take on. It brought us into the courtroom, so we felt comfortable doing that. So both those things together were great. What ultimately got me involved in a lot of this COVID stuff is that I'm the only arbitrator in Clay County that does family access motions. And family access motions are a means of relief for somebody who have claimed to have been denied parenting time pursuant to a judgment. And so you could see where we're heading down this COVID path. Around March of 2020, there's plenty of people that are freaked out. Nobody knows what to do. They're nervous to the other parents, whether they be an EMT, a doctor, work at Hy-Vee or whatever else, that they're going to bring home COVID and their kid's going to be exposed. And so the path they choose to take is, I'm just not going to send my kid over there.
One, who can blame them? And two, what are the answers there? I mean, this completely complicates the reality. I mean, how does a law firm interject themselves in this, seemingly intimate, relationship decision?
Yeah. So the big problem is that all these parenting plans, every contract, everything we do in court is trying to contemplate and address whatever concerns that we can think of. And nobody contemplated having, COVID and a pandemic striking them in 2020. So parenting plans didn't address the issue. And so parents were making their best judgment call. They're saying, look, I don't feel comfortable. I'm just not going to send them. And there's relief. There's plenty of court relief that can be sought, but nobody knew what to do, right? So you have family access motions. You have motions for contempt. You have TROs, temporary restraining orders. You've got writs. There's all sorts of things you can file. But you're really taking a medical issue to the courtroom. And I think judges, there was plenty of these town hall meetings, they called them, from Greene County, Jackson County. Platte County was all involved. All the judges are trying to figure out, what are we going to do with parents who aren't sending their kids to the other parent's house? And I can appreciate the concern from the bench, because you tell a parent, no, you've got to send them. The kid contracts COVID and they have some dire medical concern. It almost feels as though, well, that's going to come back to me. That's a real difficult position to put somebody in. And so the courts have really started to move on this issue in I think the most productive way possible, and starting at the position, COVID is not good cause to deny parenting time. You need to send the kid over to the other parent's house, and that if you just believe, based on their occupation, that they may contract it or may bring it home, that's not going to be good enough. Then there was a sort of shift to, well, if there's a positive COVID test, then that will be good enough, And I think now what a lot of judges have gotten to the position of is, it's a medical issue. We should have received medical testimony if you're going to send your kid for a medical reason, which maybe is the most logical conclusion, because that's what we're really dealing with here, isn't it? A medical concern that as a result of contracting COVID, it may or may not be.
Nothing light over there.
No, it's a real heavy topic. The backdrop of all this stuff is real interesting. Let's put it in the context of divorce, like, to complicate this all. What you have is two people that have made a promise to each other to stay together till death do them part. Now, they weren't able to keep that promise, right? They could not work together in order to keep the marriage working. And now what we're going to do is we're going to give them one of the most complex problems to deal with, raise a child. And we're going to stick that in the middle of a pandemic, and we're going to say good luck. Right? It's terrible. And I think what a lot of people going through this, they feel as though they're in an unusual situation because they're co-parenting. But the reality is that people that live together are dealing with the same issue. My wife and I are trying to decide, do I need to wear a mask during all my meetings? Do I need to wash my hands when I come home? Do we go to the store? Do we have groceries delivered? These aren't new issues for families. Just that when you're co-parenting, you have the backdrop of, you guys couldn't do the one thing that is maybe one of the greatest promises to another human we can make in our society.
Man. Well, your heart is obvious here, and you're also considerate of a lot of the externalities here that are threatening law firm management. On this podcast, we talk about marketing management. Switching to remote, can you talk specifically to other lawyers? Like, what's your advice to folks who, maybe have gone through it, or, some kind of a consideration they might have, or some advice you have?
For virtual offices? Or
remote operations.
I will tell you what, I was so grateful we had everything set up the way we did. And it wasn't because I contemplated COVID, none of us knew. But all of us run laptops. We all are using Dropbox. We use RingCentral for our phones. So literally you can pick up your office and move it wherever you want. Nobody will know. Like clients, I'll use RingCentral and I call from the mobile app, and they think I'm in my office when I'm sitting at home. And so it was amazing and it was necessary. We were completely remote from March until April or May, maybe even a little later than that. And I don't know that most clients knew, other than the fact we weren't doing in-person meetings. If a potential client called, our assistant would answer the phone at her house by the office number. She'd schedule a meeting. We use Clio through Clio Grow. And then I'd get a tick on my calendar and I would call the potential client, whenever the meeting was.
Talk to other lawyers. How many other lawyers have it all strapped up like this? Ring, Dropbox, e-signatures, Clio Grow. Comparatively, what's your kind of off the napkin number
I don't know
there?
Percentage or anything like that, but I watched an attorney in this building take his desktop home. It was hilarious. Literally boxed and monitor, the whole thing went home with them.
Well, you gotta. There may have been something else going on there.
But yeah, it's I don't see the virtual ability set up in most offices. We have a building in downtown Liberty, and I think there's 5 different law offices in here, and more than half are capable of working remotely completely. But I'm guessing just from working with other attorneys in settlement conferences, whatever else, mediations, that they're not fully capable of just picking up and going.
Man, and the business that they're leaving behind. Oof.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting watching the transitions happen because I'm getting,
Sure.
whatever MailChimp emails from other attorneys, and you can see that they're now trying to start doing more virtual options like mediations through Zoom or whatever else. The court, it was amazing. I had never, Clay County specifically would not let people submit divorces by affidavit.
Mm.
The mindset was you had to go somewhere to get married, you got to go somewhere to get divorced. And it wasn't until COVID that they allowed people to submit a divorce by affidavit, meaning they just sign the affidavit, we file it with the court, and we get a judgment a week or two later. And before they allowed that, it was real interesting how different counties were handling hearings because it was bottlenecking everything, right? You can't just stop the whole system.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was sitting in my office divorcing clients. We did Zoom meetings, WebEx meetings. It's been terribly unusual, but fun.
Payman, I think it's interesting. I think you are it's a rare situation, at least from our experience, where attorneys seemingly were proactive and well positioned for something that none of us really could have anticipated. So hats off to you there. And I think you've already dropped a couple what I think are just very practical nuggets. But what would be interesting for our maybe the listeners who are just getting started, maybe they're going through just taking the LSAT or going through law school, or maybe just recently hung a shingle in such trying times. What advice would you share with a young lawyer starting out running their practice?
I think there's a balance that has to be struck in law between what society expects and what technology allows. And let me explain that further. I don't know if either of you are familiar with the philosopher Alan Watts. I kind of got hooked on his videos for a period of time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so he talks about life being a theater. And if you think of society looking at the actor being the attorney, there's an expectation of prestige, an office, a conference room, a legal assistant. And I think when somebody in society meets their expectations, in other words, they find an attorney that has all the things they expect they should have, there's more trust. It's the same thing if you were to hire a mechanic and they got all the right tools. You'd say, wow, they've got their stuff together. And so there's this balance between that and the recognition that you really don't need to have so much stuff that old offices have, like big copy machines, desktop computers, any of that stuff. But the reason that there's a balance there is that I think people are uncomfortable with newness, right? If they go into meet with an attorney and they've got nothing but their computer and that's their entire office, I think that there are certainly some clients that are uncomfortable with that. And I don't know how you strike that balance. I think that one way maybe you strike it is you do virtual office and you rent somebody's conference room so that at least from the client's perspective, they don't know that you don't office there. They're just in a conference room and they think that's their office and makes them happy.
I think that's hugely valuable. And I do think that there is that balance. I think all business owners really work to try to find that balance in certain respects of the business. But I do think it ultimately comes down to people hire based on emotion, or at least they make decisions early based on emotion. They try to back it up with statistics and reasoning. And I think you've done an extraordinary job of, from the early stages, really looking practically at where does our experience lie? Where do we know we can help and add value to the community? You have a unique skill set in being relatable. As a lawyer, I think that's one of the biggest challenges for prospective clients is interacting with a lawyer, somebody that's significantly more educated in many instances. But I think that right there ultimately is where you can bridge that gap and find the balance.
And isn't it indicative of the practice area too? I mean, like it's hard for other folks to dig into their most authentic self if they're doing, different types of law, like contract law, like it's not the same vibe. Family, you have to establish this connection, make this real. Speaking towards that, the people who reached out to us to get you on the show, amazing. What's your thought on marketing? What's your thought on establishing those relationships, especially for family lawyers? Like what piece of advice, we're just hitting you up for your advice. What little piece of nugget do you have marketing wise, expanding those relationships?
Yeah, I will tell you, since we started our practice, I have tried everything. Next to me is sitting a big trophy. We sponsored a softball team not too far from here, and they won every single game. They went to the championship, and it was amazing because by the end of the softball league, they were known as the law firm team because we had our logo on the back of their shirts.
That's hilarious. Brand salience. Perfect.
Yeah. I've been on CLEs. I think I've been on 2 in the last 2 months, 3 in the last year. We did a gingerbread house, and we entered a contest for downtown Liberty, and it's sitting outside of our building. It's a big old gingerbread house that's lit up at night with lights. So we've done all these different things. I will tell you what's worked best for us is being a strong advocate for our clients. And we've got a hearing at 1:45 this afternoon. And I could tell that the client was a little unnerved by the hearing, and she would have settled for something she should not have settled for. And by being a strong advocate for her and letting her know, you can trust me and I've got you and we can go to trial and it's going to be okay, it gives her a sense of trust that it's going to go so far. And it's going to go so far in the marketing respect because she's going to leave and she's going to talk about how she went through this divorce and her attorney was right there with her. That sort of representation, I think, has gotten us further than anything else.
How can people learn more about your firm and find you online?
First of all, reach out. I am happy to talk to anybody about anything. I terribly enjoy what I do. This last Monday, we had a baby girl. And so I took the week
Congratulations.
off. Thanks. I stayed home with mom, made sure she had everything that she needed.
Totally.
But when I came back to work on Monday, I had just back-to-back meetings all day. And I went home terribly happy because I love people. And so people reach out, call me. I'm happy to talk about anything. But read on our website. That kind of gives us a backdrop of what we do. I like to be a mentor in this community. I say that camaraderie in the law is really terribly low, and it should not be. We should be able to count on each other and help each other out. And so if anybody needs anything, I like to be a resource. www.aramjulawfirm.com.
For show notes, links and info, go to thelawsonpodcast.com. Be sure to follow us on social and subscribe to us wherever you find your podcasts. Until next time, stay Lawson.